After weeks of anticipation, we're finally here. It's time for our paper piece block of the month. And introducing block number 1. In this lesson, we're going to be working with Barbara's block from the collection. So you should already have your foundation pieces printed out. And this lesson, we're going to learn how to cut your fabric, how to stitch out your blocks, and the final assembly of 4 blocks into one beautiful star. Prior to this video, I had released 4 introductory videos. The one was Introduction to Paper Piecing, parts 1 and 2, which basically shows the techniques I'll be using to try to make this a little easier for you. The third video that was released was called Cutting Your Fabric for Paper Piecing, and it shows a unique way of making sure that your fabric pieces will always fit in the places allotted. The fourth video was Paper Piecing Block of the Month Introduction, which basically covered how to use the electronic designs on your computer. If you recall, when we were talking about printing out our foundation papers, I suggested that you print one out on regular paper by using the mirror image function of the program. We're going to take one of those blocks and cut it up into segments so that we have our paper templates for cutting your fabric. The next step in your preparation is to take little swatches of your fabric and glue them to the appropriate sections on your fabric assignment sheet. This sheet will be invaluable as we proceed with the rest of the blocks, so you'll always hold on to this. Now, you might have noticed when you were coloring in your fabric assignment sheet how the foundation piece is a direct opposite of the part that you were coloring in. That is because the foundation piece goes on the back side of your quilt. However, the front part is the part that you color, and that's why they're mirror images. If you put them back to back, they would line up perfectly. Now, just to make sure you're getting all your template pieces in the right place and the right color, turn your foundation piece upside down. In this picture, you see the numbers are backwards. That way you know it's upside down. Now place your pieces in the different segments. Write your color number down on each of those segments and put a circle around it. That way you'll know the difference between segments and color numbers. You want to make sure that you're stacking your fabrics right sides up all the time. Not right sides together, but right sides up. So there's my wrong side, and there's my wrong side. Place your template down. Remember our little tip with the Scotch tape to make sure your template doesn't move, and we're ready to cut. Make sure when cutting to leave a ½ an inch around the entire template. So after all our careful preparation, here's my Whitman sampler paper piecing box with my foundation pieces, my add a quarter, a wooden iron. It's a box of some scraps left over from cutting these pieces that I might be able to use somewhere else. Here's all my pieces marked with my clothespins, and there's 16 of each. And last but not least, I have my guide taped inside my pizza box lid so that I'll know all the colors to assign for the future blocks. So I'm ready to go now. Always stitch with your foundation paper right side up, and the fabric going on the wrong side of the foundation paper, you can't go wrong. Remember, it's real important that you put block number 1 on the bottom and block number 2 on top. So when you reverse it, block number 1 is against the foundation piece. Again, piece number 1 is on the bottom, piece number 2 is on the top, right sides together, and we're ready to stitch. And we have our first and second pieces already finished, just like that. Taking a closer look, we see that we have a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance for piece 1 and 2. We also have one between 2 and 3, so we're good to go. As we take a close look, between 2 and 4, we have some excess, so let's trim that off and we'll be ready when we add that piece. So again, we put our cardstock against the line, fold the foundation back, grab our, not that one, we want to use our add a 1/4, and let's trim that seam allowance to 1/4 of an inch. And now we're ready for piece 3. Again, we're going to put the fabric down, right sides together. Make sure that your piece extends into and past the line by 1/4 of an inch, and it also covers the seam allowance. We've got our raw edges together, and we're going to flip and sew. Okay, let's trim away that excess now. So we're going to put our cardstock against the stitching line, and that will reveal the excess fabric in the seam. Using our add a 1/4, we'll put that against the cardstock, and we're going to trim away that excess fabric. Now we're going to go to the other area and do the same thing. We're going to put our cardstock down on the stitching line, pull the foundation back, put our add a 1/4 ruler against that, and trim that off. By doing this trimming all the time, it always gives you a good guide as to where your next piece goes. So now we're ready to do piece number 4. We've got right sides together. You want to make sure that you're at least 1/4 of an inch over on this side, and you want to make sure that you're going to go off into the seam allowance for the block on this side. That guarantees that that block, that piece of fabric, is going to fill that block for you. So let's go ahead and stitch that down. Let's give that piece 4 a trim job so that we're ready to proceed. Okay, now on to piece 5. So we're going to place that so that it's pretty much centered. We're going to get our raw edges together just like we were doing regular sewing. Make sure that you're going into the seam line on this side and the same with the other side. And we're ready to stitch that piece. And now we have piece 5 in place. So we're going to take that over and we're going to press that, trim that, and get ready for the last 2 pieces. Now we're ready for piece 6. So we're going to place that again, right sides together. We're going to make sure that we're going outside of the seam allowance on this side and outside of the seam allowance on this side, so we don't have any empty holes in our block. And we're going to flip it and let's stitch that piece. Then we're going to do a little trimming on that block up in here, and we'll press that and we'll be ready to put our last piece on. We're ready for our last piece, piece number 7. So let's get that out of our clothespin, place it right sides together. Again, make sure that you're going through the seam allowance on that side and this side. Flip it over. Start stitching outside of the seam allowance and work in. So there's our last piece. We're going to take that over, press it, and trim up the block, and I'll be right back. And just that quickly, we have 1/4 of our star block done. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the other 3/4, and then I'll come back and show you how to put them all together. For now, leave all your foundation piecing on your block because it will help you to line up your star blocks when we're ready to put the 4 pieces together. We are now ready for the last phase of this block. We have 4 sections that we've just made, and we're going to arrange them so that the points are facing outward, like so. And we're going to stitch these sections together to form our final block. Now this is the reason I had suggested not tearing the foundation paper off the backing, because we can use that to put these blocks together and make sure they line up. So let's put 2 blocks right sides together and raw edges together, making sure that it looks like this with your blocks pointing outward. If you put it together on the other seam, your blocks would be facing inward, and that would not be correct. So you have to make sure that when you put these together, you're stitching along this line right here and leaving the part with your points unstitched. So this is one of the few times that I use pins in paper piecing. I'm going to take a pin and put it right in this corner, right in the intersection of the block. And I'm going to push that pin straight through not at an angle, but straight through. And see if we line up on the other side. And we perfectly line up. That doesn't always happen the first time, so don't think that you're doing something wrong. But at this point, I'm going to put a pin right here to hold it in place. Now I'm going to go to the other end, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put a pin in the corner, straight through, don't go at an angle. And this time you can see that it's not matching up. So let's try that again. Let's get our raw edges together. Put our pin in, straight down, and this time we're dead on. So we're going to put a pin down at that edge. So we've got that put together. Now let's take our other two, and again we want to pin it on these sides, not the sides with the points. So we're going to put that together like so. Line it up. Take your pin, and again you want to put it straight in, not at an angle, straight down in. Look on the other side. If you're matched up, put a pin in to hold it in place. Now let's go to the other end. Put your pin in straight down. Turn it to the other side. And that's not quite exactly matched up, so let's try that again. Straight into the both layers, straight down. Now I'm right on. So we're going to pin that in place. Now we're going to take that to the machine and sew both sections at the same time. So we're going to start right on the line, and then I'm going to back up. This is one of the few places where I do any backtracking, but I want to make sure that these seams hold. So we're going to do some couple stitches and then reverse off the edge and then forward again. Remove the pins as you get to them. Another backtrack. Now we're going to keep on going. We're just going to chain piece, bring your other section down, back up, remove your pin, and follow that down to the end. Now we'll remove the sections, snip them apart, open it up, open it up, and you can see that our points are matching perfectly there. perfectly there. So now it's time to press. Now in this instance, instead of pressing flat like we have before, I like to press these seams open because it reduces the bulk where they join. So right now I'm just going to finger press those seams open and then give it a regular press. And again from the front. So that's one half. Let's get our other half. Finger press that seam open, like so. And now let's give it a regular press. And from the front. Okay, so now we have 2-star halves. Now we need to put the halves together. And we're going to follow the same procedure. This time we're going to start in the middle because that's the critical part. And we're going to make sure that when we put our pin in, I'm going to adjust the camera a little bit for you. We want to make sure when we put the pin in that we're going right through the seam line that we just stitched. So I'm going to do that, and I'm also going to stay on the line, which you kind of have to guess at this point because we've got our seam lines pressed open. And if you look on this side, you can't quite see, but I need to just move it just a smidge so that that's perfectly lined up. Now we have all the rest of our points on our star blocks that are totally exact. So you want to keep that exact going. And now I'm right on. You want to keep that exact going as you're pinning these together to make your final block. So that's done, and I'll put a pin in to hold it. Now let's go down to an end, holding those together like so. We're going to put a pin straight down. And make sure it lines up on the other side. Pin that in place. Go to the other end. Put your pin in straight down. Back to the other side. Try that again. Straight down. Good shape. I'm going to pin that in place. And now once again, we're ready to take that to the machine. Okay, back at the machine, we're going to do the same thing that we did before with the quarters, only now we're working with star halves. So we're going to start slightly in off the edge, take a couple stitches, backtrack, off the edge, and then forward. Remove your pin, continue on. When you get to the edge, you want to remove your pin, take a couple stitches backwards and off the edge. And now your block is perfectly lined up across here and across here. So let's go press it one more time for our final reveal. So we're going to repeat the same process. We're going to finger press these seams open like we did before. And this is a great place to use a wooden iron like this. You can use that to press that seam open. You can use a wooden roller, or you can just use your fingers. But you want to get that pressed open, at least get it started. And then we'll use the iron to do a final press. So we're going to put the iron down on the seam line and hold it. Go over the bulk in the center and hold it and continue pressing that seam flat. Now if we go to the front, you can give it one more press all over. And we now have our first finished block of the month. Give yourself a pat on the back. You did a great job. So how's the saying go? You've come a long way, baby. Look at all the places that you're going to be putting Barbara's block. So you have done good in just one lesson. Just another quick reminder, don't remove the foundation papers from the back of your blocks yet. We still need to place other blocks next to these ones. Until next time, I hope you join us on our Facebook group, Sit Down Free Motion Quilters. There you can receive all the accompanying materials for these classes and also join in on all the fun. It's been my pleasure bringing these classes to you.